Hello, so today we're going to talk about this Reddit article I found called "The Belief That Tekken 7 Was Too Defensive Is What Ruined Tekken 8." Like, there's a couple things in there, like, I'm not too sure about, I don't think I agree with, but it hits the nail on the head for the most important point about why Season 2 is so disappointing and such a miss. So, Tekken 8's vision. Harada observed some top Tekken 7 matches and said it was too stale, too much backdashing and spacing, not enough attacking and action. This observation is fair enough. I think we agree. You know, if you were in Tekken 17 and you saw Kunimura's, you'd understand, right? But what he and other Tekken 7 critics failed to understand is why it was this way, which is very, very important. And I think that's what he gets really right in this article. If you try to fix a problem you don't understand, then you're going to send a ship in the wrong direction, which is exactly what happened to Tekken 8. Yes, definitely. Pros didn't backdash all day or interact less with the opponent in Tekken 7 because it was rewarding or advantageous. This is just wrong. Yes, that's the point. Because even I get caught saying, oh, you just ended up backdashing all day, right? But I understand why when I say that. People think I'm just shitting on the game, right? I played Tekken 7 for 8 years, start to finish. I never even took a break. I liked the game. But if I criticize it for that, it's for good reasons. And he will get into them. So yeah, look at Tekken 5 and ask yourself, why is it that they were much more aggressive or rather interactive there? Yeah, because a lot of people on social media right now have been posting like old footage of older Tekkens, not Tekken 7, and everyone goes, wow, this is so sick, peak Tekken, remove heat, remove this, and the game would be so much better. And yeah, the thing is, we went in the wrong direction after, I think 7 went in the wrong direction, and then 8 tried to fix the problems of 7 without undoing the problems of 7, right? So that's kind of the issue. But yeah, so where it all started, the crush system got introduced in Tekken 5, which made it easier to be longer on offense. So yeah, I'm not too sure what he means by this whole paragraph, but I guess I'll just finish it and I'll get right into it. Where you would otherwise let the opponent take their turn because continuing your own offense was too risky, you now are rewarded to continue offense if you have the right read. What does this do? If it's too risky for the defender to start their aggression, then they become less aggressive, which in turn makes it less interactive. But okay, we're getting ahead of ourselves. Tekken 5 is pretty interactive, blah, blah. So he goes and says it wasn't so bad at the time. But he says this is where he thinks it started. Now, I'm not sure I agree this is where it started, because, yeah, Tekken 7's problem is that people weren't interacting on offense. They weren't attacking. There he's complaining that the defender wasn't defending enough. So, no, or was too scared to interact as the defender, is what he's saying. So I'm not too sure about this part, because crushing can be both defensive and offensive if used correctly. So I don't know about this. But he says it started with new mechanics. Is basically the point of this, right? So yeah, Tekken 6 and the dawn of a lot of new mechanics. So I think he's just introducing the fact that adding mechanics and bloat ends up bringing us in the wrong direction. So I'll follow him there, even though I'm not too sure about that first bit. Yes, Tekken 6. You had homing moves. Yes, there were no homing moves prior to Tekken 6. Some moves tracked due to their hitbox, but there was no move designed to be homing until Tekken 6. Bound made for longer combos. Yes, there was no combo mechanics per se, except for, I guess, you could call the wall combo mechanics. But yeah, you just juggled your opponent, but there was no tornado, there was no high spin, there was no nothing, right? The only thing you could do, which is barely a mechanic, is spike them, they can't tech, and you might get a guaranteed hit. That's as far as it went. Yeah, more damaging combos, more wall carry as well. I don't know if he mentions that or not. The opponent now suddenly ends up in an extremely advantageous position if they get launched. I mean, does it do more damage to get launched? Oh yeah, more carry to the wall, he does say it. And you can't move well and are susceptible to 50-50s, yes. Because combos becoming longer and stronger is also a problem, because positionally in a 3D game, being at the wall is terrible. In a 2D game, it's also terrible, right? But in a 3D game, usually the combos didn't take you that far. So if you ended up at the wall, it used to be kind of your fault, right? used to maybe be too defensive and you backdashed your way to the wall without sidestepping enough, or your opponent realigned so you could only go backwards, right? Plenty of reasons, plenty of mind games and stuff, but now the combos are so good at taking you to the wall that you end up in this bad position. So it makes whiffing extremely scary. So now you have to do more small pokes instead, so you don't risk getting launched as easily. Not only that, rage is introduced, so now, yeah, okay, I'll talk about rage later. So yeah, what he says is whiffing is extremely scary, so you have to do more small pokes. I was playing Tekken 6, and Tag 2 is kind of the same, but I guess that issue specifically is probably even worse in Tag 2. The mid-level players, what we were doing, I think I grew past mid-level at the very end of the game, but that's a story for another day, right? Mid-level play, people just shout out launchers because it's so advantageous to just do a hop kick, right? I'll take Tag 2 as the example. Then you tag, then you take them to the wall, then it's 50-50 time, and you're not getting that hard of a punish on a hop kick. They were minus 13 like they are today, right? Except you get so much reward for doing that, the people were just doing that, right? So at the highest level, you made sure not to get launched, right? You threw out a bit less launchers at the highest level just because you knew when they were going to hit. You didn't have to risk getting punished because you were a bit better at placing them. And you played with small pokes, as he said. Find the opening, force the opening, condition your opponent, make him do a mistake, and then punish the smallest of whiffs, right? But yeah, in Tekken 6, launching became so good because in Tekken 5, you could shit out stupid amounts of damage just like you can in our games today, right? But launching didn't really bring that much more damage, really. Like if you could get the wall, maybe, but realistically, launching is not necessarily that much better than a lot of strong pokes, right? Tekken 6 is where this started. So yeah, it's very scary to get launched and to make a mistake. Mistakes are scary. Whiffing is scary. That's what he's saying, which I think is the key point of this article. Yeah, so not only that, rage is introduced, so now the guy has been losing so far. This run gets access to an extreme comeback mechanic to threaten you, which not only reduces the skill gap, but also further lessens interaction when rage is active. See, like, I have to say something. I like comeback mechanics when they're not overblown, right? Rage in Tekken 6 was quite silly. It boosts your damage by, I don't know what the percentage was exactly, but like you would die in like very, very, very quickly. Like rage in Tekken 6, it only activated when you're in like 10-15%, so it was very low percentage for it to activate. But when it was active, you could kill your opponent so quickly. Like it was ridiculous. But as a general rule, because people always talk about heat and rage and whatnot in more modern games, I want to say I like those because it breaks the monotony isn't the right word, but hear me out. It breaks the monotony of the gameplay, right? The gameplay is good. We like the gameplay, but I like when there's a bit of change added at a certain point, right? I like the pressure of going, oh shit, he's in rage, I have to be extra careful, right? That's why I think Tekken 7's addition of rage drive but reducing the damage was a cool idea, even if some rage drives were too strong. But overall, I kind of like comeback mechanics to break the staleness. That's why I like heat. It's not even a comeback mechanic, it's just something that changes the gameplay suddenly, right? Which is something I enjoy. It needs to be balanced right, which it often isn't, but that's beside the point. The mechanic itself I don't think is flawed for me, but I think it's not necessarily implemented in the best way. But let's stay on Tekken 6. Tekken 6 also introduced Lars and Elisa who can neutral skip. This means that they have moves that make playing neutral easier because it is baked into some of their moves instead of having the need to space moves to not get whiff punished or have a read, you're gonna bait, whatever, rush down. Certain moves very safely, range 2 or 3, they are approaching tools, right? Still, this was only a rather small part of Tekken, and even though some new mechanics, Tekken 6 were heavily criticized by parts of the community, Tekken 6 still played like a Tekken game. In terms of neutral, rewarding Lexi's skill and knowledge. That being said, I think you can see where this is going. Yes, Yes, we can see. I believe we can see. What he's saying is this is still a Tekken game despite all of this, which is kind of what I want to add to this article. Is you can add stuff to the Tekken formula without breaking it, right? My issue with Season 2 is they broke it, right? But we'll get to that when we get to that, because if it's like only a couple characters have these approaching tools, as long as these approaching tools are not super broken, like Lars was very good, but people say he's like top 10 in like we saw him a lot in tournaments, but people from the tier list I've been seeing from people who played the game at the time, Lars wasn't top 2 with Bob. Bob was top 1, and Bob isn't even mentioned, right? So the approaching tools clearly aren't what break the game. At least when Lars were good, but they were not broken, right? But now we get to Tekken 7, right? I played a lot more Tekken 7 than I played the other games. Actually, I played almost as much Tag 2, but he doesn't mention Tag 2. But yeah, so yeah, let's get to Tekken 7, which is where the real problems happen. Because for me, Tekken 7, if you don't count Tekken 8 Season 2, or Tekken 8 as a whole, let's just say Tekken 8 as a whole, Tekken 7 is probably the most different Tekken game since Tekken 3, right? Like if you go from Tekken 3, 4, 5, 6, Tag 2, 7 is the one that stands out the most for me, right? I personally think Tekken 8 Season 1 had a lot to make it similar to older Tekkens, despite all of the heat bullshit. But yeah, this is the game that really changed everything. And Tekken 8 is partly based on this one, which is where the problems happen, I guess. So yeah, so now we're in Tekken 7. Combos do even more damage, and you end up at the wall in most every world stage. Because now, instead of bound, you had tailspin, which instead of going straight down, so it doesn't really add much length, it added some length, because it allowed the opponent to dash up and then continue. You would send them very far. And also it was the game where they homogenized everyone, so that everyone had good wall carry pretty much, right? Almost everyone in Tekken 7 had good wall carry. In Tekken 6, it was Lee, Nina, and I think Lars had alright wall carry, but it's nothing compared to what it is now. Like, wall carry is still a specialty feature, right? Tekken 7, everyone was carrying to the wall like crazy. So that problem of getting to the wall is even worse now. Even if you're the complete opposite side of the stage, yeah, this leads to fast counter tools being extremely scary. So you don't want to use big moves, and the combo damage on low parry is so big. They're scared to open up your opponents. Yes, you could tailspin in low parries. You could do your bound or whatever, or tornado for those of you who play Tekken 8 in a low parry, which meant you die on a low parry, right? Even scarier than it is now. It would do the damage of someone doing heat burst plus heat dash, except it was just a normal combo mechanism. They could do that all the time. Right? So low parry got scarier, combos in general got scarier, which means you want to interact even less, right? Because it's even scarier. If you mess up, you're going to die, right? He also says Oki is scarier, but I don't think that's true. Oki in Tekken 6 Tag 2 was brutal, right? If you couldn't get up, you get relaunched for trying to get up wrong, like from the floor getting relaunched. Not you got up and guessed wrong, like you got up and they picked you up as you got up, right? So I don't think Oki got scarier. Oki got simplified, but I don't think it got scarier. DLC strings make sidewalking scarier. I'm not sure what he means by DLC strings. Guard breaks appear. I mean, that's just Fakumram, so it's, again, one character. And like the guard break he had was annoying, but it wasn't that prevalent. Like what made Fakumram good wasn't necessarily his guard break, but they did appear. So again, new mechanic that is a problem. I wish they never added those to Tekken, right? Flying through the air with some bullshit from 10 miles away is more rampant. I think Blasted Salami invented that term, right? So yeah, you get like Noctis and Kuni, and like Kazumi has this fly stance. A lot more neutral skipping, right? Again, I still don't think it was that much of a problem, except for Noctis was quite a problem, but I was playing Akouma, so it's whatever, right? And Kuni was quite a problem. Yeah, it was too safe. Like her neutral skip was too strong. which again, I don't think neutral skipping in a sense is that much of a problem if it's balanced right. It wasn't balanced right. Yeah. Rage is stronger with rage drives. It's more usable. I'd say it's more versatile. I don't know if it's quite stronger than it was in Tekken 6. Because in Tekken 6 you would die so quickly, but they would still have to play Tekken to kill you. It's just that it would reduce the amount of interaction. See, Tekken 6 I think was a bad implementing of rage, because it just meant, oh, if you're losing then suddenly you can make up the difference, right? Tekken 7, it had, oh, in rage you unlock a new solution to problems, right? That you only get once per round, right? Now the problem is that movement is weaker. That's the big one. That is the big one. Like like when you go back to it from Tekken 8 and you play any other Tekken game, this I've been going back to Tag 2. A lot of people these days have been going back to older games, Tekken 5, Tekken 6. Like the emulators are getting better. Like people, if you play other Tekken games than 7, you go back to 7, you will notice Tekken 7 feels like a 2D game. Sidestepping in Tekken 7 in the arcade release was near impossible, and they made it slightly better for the console release, but like movement is terrible. You can backdash very far, but with your opponents running at you, neutral skipping, right, that doesn't really help, right? The fact that you can't sidestep is huge. And when you like, if you could sidestep Kuni or Noctis running at you, Noctis was a homing move, so you weren't gonna do that anyway, but like if you could sidestep the neutral skips, then it would be fine if they had a long range approach tool, right? But movement is weaker, which is a huge problem, right? Then they adopt 2D characters. The thing about the 2D characters that fits this narrative, because listen, I was an Akouma player. I tend to defend Akouma, but it fits this scenario of making it super scary to interact. Akuma's main problem wasn't that it was that you would die for being wrong. Like if he clipped you, you died. If you tried to attack him and he jumped over, you died. With Geese, mid parry, launcher, eat 150 damage because you tried to do a down forward one. Same thing. Interacting with the 2D characters was a huge problem. So as much as I want to defend them because they had flaws and blah blah blah, I'm not going to do that because it fits very well what he's trying to say. And what he's trying to say is very important. Now you made it even scarier to interact, especially when someone's in rage, because if you get clipped, then you're fucked, right? That's the point. With rage drives, if you get clipped, then you're fucked. Again, for me, it's an issue of balance more than an issue of the mechanic, but he's right. He's right. At the very least, half your health bar, if not the whole thing in certain circumstances. Again, let's pretend you just mentioned Akouma again and say that he's right. Is gone. And if you're at the wall where you can't backdash, super scared sidewalk, because there's homing wall splatting moves. Yeah, there was more homing wall splats than there were before. He's probably right about that. And yeah, sidestepping, sidewalking in general were just worse. So even moves that didn't really track would track you just because you moved less. So yeah, there was Scary Oki, right? Again Akouma, Scary Oki. But I don't think it's scarier than before. But still, it happened more often because you always had the wall. So if you can't sidewalk at the wall, then you just stand there instead, which of course makes you extremely susceptible to 50-50s. It says, are you having fun yet? The hardcore community was talking about these issues in every podcast. Constructive feedback about the same problems we had today, readily available to anyone who looked for us since at least Tekken 6, right? He's right, but they got worse in Tekken 7, right? See what happened? The reason Tekken 7 got stale is not defense was too strong, it was because making a mistake was extremely scary. Yes. 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 You whiff, you die. You tried opening up your opponent with lows and got a bit too predictable. Should have done that. Or try to end the round with your opponent in rage. Damn, not smart, not so smart. So what happens then? Players have to respect the risk and just defend instead. Yes. Less interaction because it's too scary to interact. So you just wait for an opening to happen. This is a completely different problem than defense is too strong. Exactly. Players with, well, in the case of low parry, I guess it does kind of relate to defense is too strong. But the overall problem isn't defense is too strong. But I think low parry is defense, right? But again, you can make low parries worse and then problems fixed on that end, at least. Players were too afraid of attacking Tekken 7. Combos were so scary that they turned into very poke-heavy game. Mechanics like rage, crushing, armor made it risky to interact. When you have the life lead, so it's just not a smart move, especially when they're in rage. Yes, fully agree on that. But I think power crushes are again a way to defend, but the thing is they can also be used on offense. For me, I like mechanics. I like adding more stuff to the game to break the staleness, even though it's not stale. But it's all, for me, that's a question of balancing. But overall, he's right. The problem isn't defending is too strong. It's the defending was the optimal thing to do. There's a big difference between the two, right? So yeah, making a mistake is too scary. You whiff, you die. It turned Tekken 7, especially since you can move on the sides. I did fencing as a kid. It reminded me of fencing because you're not sidestepping. You can kind of evade, which is kind of like crushing, right? And if you get hit, you die. You lose the round, right? That's fencing. So Tekken 7 was a very slow game. That doesn't mean bad for me, right? But it was too slow, right? And that's why he goes for Tekken 8. The devs said they wanted the game to be more fun, to be on the aggressive side. And he says it's completely outrageous and ignorant. I'm going to disagree with this part, right? Because I believe Tekken 7 was too slow. I don't mean that in a bad way. I liked the game. I played it for 8 years. And I would have played it longer if there was no Tekken 8, right? But, yes. Now, he goes on a rant about how shit they are at designing a game. I'll read it for you because I believe he has done a good enough job at explaining himself. But I think this is kind of shit talk for the sake of shit talk. He could have made... I was expecting more out of the Tekken 8 part. So yeah, the devs said they wanted it to be more fun to be on the offensive, right? This is completely outrageous and ignorant. Not only do they not understand their own game, they don't understand how to make an interesting and fun gameplay, and they obviously suck at game design, right? They have tampered with the core balance of the game so much that they don't have fair interactive play anymore. It's gone from skill-based game rich in legacy knowledge with tons of different character identities to a guessing game that's too complex to be a party game and too dumbed down and unfun and unfair to be a fighting game worth anyone's time in the long run. Harada and critics of Tekken 7 in particular have completely missed the mark on what they saw in Tekken 7. They don't want aggression, they want interaction. Yes, they do. Which you get if you balance defense with aggression well. And if you focus on only defense or aggression, then you lose interaction between both players. And you take the fun out of the game, which is what we're seeing in the depressed player base now. They are simply not having fun. Exactly. Right, this second paragraph in the Tekken 8 part is good. This first bit, I have things to add, right? So yeah, he's right. It's interacting, and they buffed offense in a way where there's no interacting on defense, right? You are like, you take Jun's new homing move, right? Range 4, can't do anything about it. Evades highs, even evades some mids. If you block it, 50-50 stance mix up. Jin, running free on block, plus 12 into a stance. They made the low faster. If you get hit by the low, wall crush. You're still in a mix-up. It can do another running free. Running free, you can go for the dive kick, wall crush, or plus 8 if there's no wall, even plus 9 probably. Right, into wave. Like, you're doing stuff as the aggressor, right? Like, take the new Lee moves. Just go boom, 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 and there's not much they can do. You do the big plus 8 move into stance. If you don't go into stance plus 6, whatever, you just do it again, right? There's no real interaction. They can maybe power crush through it, depending what I do. But, like, you are giving the aggressor so much, right, in Season 2. But you are failing to understand that interacting is a dance. Interacting is two people interacting with each other. Right? It's not a single player game. That's where they fucked up. In Season 1, there were some scenarios where it was single player gaming, right? Kuma in Heat, for example, right? Single player gaming. Drag QCF4 looping you, like that was horrible, right? Season 1 wasn't perfect, but I believe it wasn't rotten to the core, right? I believe it could have been salvaged, and I don't even think it was that hard, right? But the vision and the direction is wrong, which is what he's saying, right? It's it's the, like, I think he says it literally later in the last paragraph, but I'll save that for the end. Like, it's the direction. You see, they went in the completely wrong path. Because if you look at Tekken 8, and that is a thing people always miss when they want to shit on Tekken 8, is I played the demo build, the alpha builds, and there were so many steps in the right direction. So many. And hear me out, right? Low parries are one of the things people mention. Low parries got nerfed, right? Low parries got nerfed because now you could no longer do your tailspin. With the addition of heat, sure, that changes it. But again, less damaging low parry in general. They removed safe magic 4s. They removed, like, King's back 1-2. You have to commit. It makes it more punishable, right? So they did two things to counter hits. They made counter hits either less rewarding. If you look at Nina in the alpha builds, or even, I think, even the demo, even if you can download the demo right now and check it, I believe Nina, if I remember correctly, did not get launchers on everything that was counter hits, right? And that means if you're not risking a counter hit launch on everything, you're more likely to come and interact because it's not as scary. Because you were saying it's too scary to come attack. They tried to make it less scary at the very beginning of Tekken 8. Even before it was out, the vision was there. That's what I'm saying. The vision was there. Counter hits became less scary, and then they made the launching counter hits be punishable, right? And slower for some of them, right? If you take Law's Magic 4, the first hit doesn't counter at launching you. He has to commit to the second, in which case you can duck. And it's also 13 frames instead of 11. Shaheen has to do 4-1 and it's 13, so it's slow, it's not as good. King's back 1-2, he has to do the 2. He can no longer just back one counter hit, which means you can duck and punish. And if you don't want to take the mix up, you can just block and punish both options, right? Both options are punishable if you block, right? They made it less scary. They did make it less scary to interact, which should have promoted a more aggressive and fun gameplay. They at least someone on the team at the beginning understood what they needed to do. They understood the mission. The problem is, with the new direction, what they did is, instead of making it less scary to attack by making the defender's options not as scary, they made the offensive options just beat everything you could ever do. They made Jin's running free plus 12. No wall, no nothing, no wall crush, no mechanic. Plus 12. And they did that to a bunch of things where you can't interact. It doesn't even matter if you have a broken defensive tool. It doesn't even matter if you do any, because what's gonna happen is you're not risking anything, because they're not gonna counter hit you. They're not gonna stop. They cannot stop your offense reliably, and that's why they decide to make it less scary to attack by buffing attack instead of nerfing defense. The thing is, everyone asked for better defense. So it's kind of counterintuitive. But we wanted more defensive options. What we meant was chill on the offense, right? The issue wasn't we don't have enough defensive mechanics. They could have maybe added like, I think Heat Burst used defensively is cool, right? But maybe they could have added something else in Heat that makes it that makes the game more defensive. I don't know. I don't know what they could have done. But what they shouldn't have done is made it so the offense beats all possible defensive options, right? That's where, for me, that's where they messed up, right? Like, all of the problems from 6 and 7, they all compiled and, like, they all accumulated. And I think Tekken 8 has even more accumulating. The combos are even longer. But what they did is they buffed the combos in Tekken 8 to a point where we're back to Tekken 7 combos, right? Where it's too much, too easy, and brings you to the wall all the time, right? When they could have checked and nerfed combos a little bit. They could have, right? But everyone got their combos buffed and their damage buffed, right? And, like, they could have just nerfed counter hits to make offense more profitable. Again, Nina, if you look in the demo builds, did not launch you on everything she does now. She usually got, like, a guaranteed hit, right? So instead of, like, 100 damage with the wall, you would eat, like, I don't know, 45, right? I'm willing to try and poke if I'm taking 45, right? Like, I'm willing to try. And yeah, he hits the nail on the head. The issue with the game was it was too scary. But Season 2's solution, and this is where I think there's a disconnect. Because for me, even though the problems kept compiling, and even in Tekken 8 they compiled, I saw the light in Tekken 8. I saw the light. And in Season 2, they killed it. That's my problem, right? I genuinely believe Tekken 8 Season 1 did not suffer from what is making Season 2 unfun, right? They are simply not having fun, right? That's what's happening right now. People are hating the patch. Like, a lot of people dislike Tekken 8 Season 1, but a lot of people liked it. Like, I got new and old players. I have old players that hated 7 that went back to 8 and were like, no, this is the shit. I love it, right? I do not believe Season 2 is just a continuation of Season 1. I do not believe that. And I think it was very easy to steer the ship back in the right direction. And I think at several points during development, they tried to do it. And someone, probably Nakatsu, maybe not, maybe Murray. People say love to shit on Murray. I don't think it's Murray, but it could be. It could be. Someone steered the ship back into the tornado, right? And we are now in this terrible situation. They are not having fun. So yeah, let's check the way forward. This is why people are dooming. Launch Leroy was a disaster, but that problem could theoretically be patched out in a single patch. You can't just patch out an out-of-touch vision that's infiltrated the game for decades so easily. They could revert Season 2 and we would have something that isn't as bad as it is right now. But if they keep their vision of aggressive play, homogenization of characters, and removal of character identity, the dumbing down of their game, which removes skill expression, removing legacy mechanics and knowledge, and making it easier for noobs to win against veterans, then it is always going to move away from what made Tekken great. The only thing that could save Tekken is Bamcode realize that their vision has ruined the series, to change course and start focusing on the balance between defense instead of aggression. And a part of me believes that this is what they really wanted to do, and they just didn't understand how to get there because of their blindness and ignorance. And that is, I think, overall that's what's going on. They missed the mark. And like I just said, I believe that someone on the team knew what they were doing, and then it all went wrong. Because the game, like, I'll give another example. King's Down Forward 1-2 didn't launch in the alpha build. I played a build of Tekken 8 where Down Forward 1-2 was not a launcher. Like, he lost back 1-2, but now people don't care because he has Down Forward 2-1. Down Forward 2-1, there wasn't a counter. It was a counter hit. It wasn't a counter hit launcher. Someone knew what they were doing. Bring this guy back. Please bring this guy back. Let him do the whole game again. Revert the patch and let this guy do Season 2 on his own, man. So I'm as disappointed as you guys are, but I feel like this expresses a lot of what I wanted to express, even though I clearly don't have the exact same vision as this guy. But this is where discussing the game is important. So yeah. Thank you. Who's this guy? Let's credit him. Thank you, Tube Show. Thank you very much for this article. Very insightful. I hope you guys enjoyed my analysis and my take on this. If you enjoyed it, like, share, subscribe, do all that good stuff. And I'll be on my way. Take care.